Years ago, a friend of ours was presented with a garden, or got to see a garden for the first time. And he obviously had not grown up with gardening and gardens as much a part of his life. Anyway, his comment was, well, gosh, it isn't very beautiful. It was a flower garden. And the salient point was that it wasn't very beautiful, but it was February. And February in a cold climate or cool climate, northern hemisphere garden is often not very beautiful. It's often rather dormant. It's kind of like saying, gosh, that bear isn't very active. Meanwhile, the bear is in hibernation and is more or less asleep for several months until springtime. Recently, we put our garden sort of to bed. We've spoken about this a little bit in other videos, that we had a vegetable garden and with flowers also, but mostly vegetables and greens near our flat here. In fact, just about 10 feet from where I'm sitting. And it produced nicely during the summer, with a few notable exceptions. I think we put more potatoes in the ground than we got back out. Dubious distinction there. But anyway, it was a nice kind of completion to the cycle to sort of finish harvesting everything. There's still some greens out there and things that will winter over that do nicely here in the winter, with a little protection occasionally when it gets really cold. But mostly the production of things, the zucchinis and the tomatoes are all done, and we pulled all that back out. And then there's a process, and I don't claim to be an expert at this, so those of you who are may smile a little and wrinkle your nose perhaps if I get something wrong here, but my understanding of what you do at the end of a season is you feed the soil. You give whatever may have been taken out of it. Perhaps you plant a cover crop. In our case, we covered it with leaves, which will then go back into the soil and are sort of protecting the soil now from the rains, assuming that there are rains. There were rains a little bit in California here, but we're hoping for more, hoping for a lot more, because we could certainly use rain and snow in the mountains. But anyway, there is this renewal, this rebuilding, this kind of re-nurturing. And I wanted to talk about that because those features of a garden are also features of our life. And in the West, we revere, and I would go so far as to say we even worship the youthful, outwardly beautiful, productive, exuberant side of life, which tends to be epitomized by the youthful age sets of the 20-somethings, 30-somethings, maybe 40-somethings. We don't tend to extol the virtues of the 70-somethings and 80-somethings and on up into the 100-somethings. The wisdom accrued, the life experience accrued in those age brackets tends to be of less importance to us culturally. And this has some downsides because there is a natural renewal, an assimilation process. Obviously, if you feed the soil, then it spends the winter assimilating what you fed it. And what you fed, if it's done properly, as I understand it, what you feed it takes a long time to assimilate. It's not a sudden, you give leafy plants nitrogen and they burst into life, assuming it's just enough and not too much. In the spring, they'll really pop up. It's almost a drug in a sense. What you feed in the fall is much more nurturing to the structure of the soil. Again, I'm out at the edge of my knowledge, but these are intuitive things that I understand, and I've tried my best to do them. Well, in our lives, we also have to look to the time periods, and I speak now especially of this year, 2020, which many people, you'll see humorous sweatshirt slogans and bumper stickers and, memes that pop up on the internet about how lousy the year 2020 has been. And I would like to offer a different point of view. I would suggest that this year has been, and continues to be, frankly, because people are having to be more sequestered again with infection numbers going up as they've been. We have to become a little more introspective, a little bit more nurturing of the inner side of our lives. And this is often best done a bit sequestered. It's not something that is done for public approval or comment. It's not particularly beautiful or sexy or however you want to think of it. But it's highly necessary. And so I say all this because we're on an adventure here. And it may not be, the adventure that a kid loves, like going to Disneyland or something. It may be an adventure of the soul where we learn to explore the inner realms. A close relative of mine, very extroverted and very much engaged socially, has really found a new way of looking at life just by virtue of this year and having to spend more time alone. And we can all experience that. That's not something we have to suffer through. Yes, we can suffer through it if we sort of force ourselves to suffer, but we don't have to. Yogananda said, and I've quoted this before in other videos, in fact I think this is the title of some one or two videos, seclusion is the price of greatness. And, initially I didn't know what to make of that. Gosh, if you're going to become great, it means you're going to automatically be in seclusion? No. It means that you have to have enough alone time to find out who you are, to experience your own deepest nature. Those things are not on public display. They're something that we have to find inside of ourselves. So much like the garden that is rejuvenating its soil, that's building the structure and the nutrients and assimilating all that very slowly. Trees in winter, they've lost their leaves. All of that outward glory tends to be gone. Although I have to say, this year and maybe last year, the fall colors, we don't normally think of California as a place where we enjoy fall colors. But my goodness, the trees have been stunning this year. And a lot of them still have leaves. They're still, here it is late November. And they're, the reds, the golds, the oranges, the yellows, they're just brilliantly beautiful. And that's the leaves giving their final little bit, their little parting gesture off the stage of life, doing it in their beautiful way. There is beauty in every stage of life. As a child, my favorite season was winter. I loved the snow. I didn't love the dirty, slushy, gloppy February, actually, as it happened. We used to say February should be abolished. This was in the Chicago area in the winter. It was just a nasty month because it wasn't cold enough to be snowy all the time. It would melt and it would get muddy and then it would snow and then it would melt. And, it tended to be this kind of slushy weather. But anyway, there is beauty in every time of life. We have to learn to look for it. So let's do that work now. The season here in the Northern Hemisphere is taking us more inward. Let's enjoy that inwardness and really do the work inside to explore our divine nature, because there is a divine beauty, a divine realization waiting for all of us. Namaste.